Welcome to the Common Sense Show. And today I have a very special guest. I'm speaking to Sebastian Uskadegi. He has been on 300 plus stages. And as you know, if you're watching this, that I I'm a public speaker, so I love people who do public speaking as well to share their tips and their tricks to help you to become a better speaker. Because if you can write, speak, and think, you're absolutely deadly. It doesn't matter if you have a degree or not. It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter how much money you have. If you can speak, write, and think, you're going to be absolutely deadly. And as business owners, your ability to speak and communicate what you want to a message that you want to get across to your audience, whether they are investors, a general audience who might purchase your product or service, your ability to communicate verbally could set you apart and could make you a lot of money. So today I've brought on an expert who has, as I mentioned, shared over 300 stages, and we're going to talk about this. Talk about how you can get to the point where speaking is maybe more natural for you, and how you can do it in an effective way to build your business. All right, so hang tight, and I'm going to bring Sebastian on stage. Sebastian, welcome to the Common Sense Show.
Hey, what's up? It's great to be here. It really is an honor. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no worries. So as I mentioned in the open, you have been on 300 stages. You've given quite a number of presentations, and I wanted to just talk about how you can. Today, really, the theme is finding your voice when no one's listening. Oftentimes, we don't think that we have anything to add to the conversation out there, which is other than the fear of just kind of being up in front of a lot of people have hard times with. But why don't we kind of start at your beginning? What led you to this stage from the beginning?
Well, in my case, it was a long road of a lot of struggle. I was a struggling business owner, the only child of an immigrant family that wanted to help free my parents from the endless 9 to 5 by starting my businesses, uh, really growing as an entrepreneur. And I found how difficult it was. I mean, having a business today is nothing like what we saw growing up. All the entrepreneurs that we grew up watching found their success with things that don't really work the same way anymore. And so I spent a lot of years struggling running my businesses, never really breaking past the 5-figure mark, and really being in a position of a lot of debt, a lot of poverty. And I even ended up putting $20,000 out of my own pocket to try to get my business to grow through ads, and I didn't get a single client through it. When I first stepped on a stage for public speaking, suddenly everything changed. I saw my business quadruple in size almost overnight, and that one stage invited me to many others. And that's when I realized that today's world has a severe lack of authenticity and brave voices. And the best way to stand out in a world that is generally oversaturated by entrepreneurs and ads and things that people generally just kind of look past and ignore, the only way to stand out is by having a strong purpose and embodying that with a strong voice.
What was your initial topic that you were speaking about on that stage?
My first business was in finance. So I was actually talking about financial liberty and the importance of financial independence and some ways to achieve that.
And what was it that got you invited back, in your opinion, to other stages?
It's the one thing that I would suggest to almost every speaker to do: focus on providing. So when I'm on a stage, I'm not doing a sales pitch. I'm focused on creating an experience for everyone listening. I'm focused on providing as much value and information and life-changing detail that I can. And so when you're focused on being someone that is giving and creating value for the host of an event, every other host in the audience sees that. So they'll be inviting you left and right. Speaking is the greatest solution, not just for marketing, but for networking as well.
So let's break this down, because you hear from a lot of gurus out there talk about creating value through offerings, what you say, et cetera, et cetera. What does creating value mean to you? Let's simplify that concept.
I think the quality of every speaker is measured by just one thing. Mm-hmm. How much are they changing a life? So every host of an event they want their speakers to be highly valuable and talk at a high value level. And the way that they're thinking is my audience going to come in and walk out differently? So when I say create values, make sure that you put something in front of the audience that is undeniably going to change their life and the way that they view things if they use it. And then being a good speaker is different from being a great speaker, because a great speaker will make sure that the audience is so moved at an emotional level that they will want to use all the things and information that you're putting out to them. So it generates this passion, a motivation, and a call to action. All three of those things put together make for an incredible experience for someone, and that is what I define as creating value.
Okay, so your ability to make an impact on someone, on their life, or even to help them, for instance, learn one thing. I remember I used to go to conferences all over the country. I spent so much money on them just to learn one thing. The most impactful speakers, I think, that I heard from were speakers who told stories. Those speakers kind of moved the audience. You could tell because of the reactions that they were getting from the folks in the audience, that they really kind of were kind of delivering an impact by just kind of like bringing people along to their journey. Is that what you find is one of the most effective ways to make an impact on your audience when you're speaking?
Absolutely. We as human beings, it doesn't matter how much we advance technologically, we're always going to resonate more with stories. We're always going to crave storytellers. We want that. There's this thing that people talk about in the speaking world. It's called I apologize. I had to sneeze, but
Okay, go ahead.
I'm a little sick right now, so I'm trying to really hold it together for the podcast. So I'm so sorry about that. But there's this thing called the hero story, and that just it's an arc, right? Where you're talking about struggle, you're talking about pain, you're talking about overcoming. That is the one thing that every speaker needs to do to tell a proper story and generate impact. And that's because we as an audience, now listening to that speaker, we want to hear about how they overcame, because they're embodying that character, that hero that they are in their story is embodying the same struggle that we feel and is showing us how to walk to overcome that. And so that's the reason why stories are so impactful when you're a speaker. And that's the reason why you need to use them and integrate them. The worst kind of speakers are the informative speakers. If it's not clear, I've spoken at the United Nations. I'm wearing the sweater and the hat right now. And what I saw when I was there from a lot of the other speakers there, unfortunately, was a huge lack of leadership and speaking skills. Even though they were talking about some of the most important issues in the world, people, and this is not an exaggeration, people were literally falling asleep in the audience while they were speaking. They were talking straight off a script, straight information, zero story, zero impact. And thus, a lot of people left the United Nations at this event completely unchanged. That can never happen when you're a speaker. Having impact is non-negotiable.
So is having impact about personality?
Well, I would say that might tie into a certain aspect, but it's not about being like, the super crazy, energetic personality. It's more about being vulnerable, emotional, and real. People don't have impact when they feel like they're talking to this fairy tale, this not real figure. The most impactful speakers are always people that talk about how low they were before they made it up. That's it. It's as simple as just being genuine.
So really the secret element is being genuine. So even if, for instance, your personality is not one of vulnerability necessarily, what you're suggesting is that you just be yourself on stage. Like whatever it is that attracts friends and people to you outside of the realm of speaking or being on stage is what you should bring to the stage. Bring that same person to the stage.
Well, yes, but that's a lot more difficult than people understand that it is. People think that being yourself is just being the way that you are with your friends and your family and whatnot. But it means to really be yourself. Mm-hmm. People, even with their closest friends and families, they don't allow their true personality to pull through, because the true personality is oftentimes something very ugly, something that's filled with a lot of pain and a lot of obstacles and a lot of scars and whatnot. Those are the things that people want to hear about, because you have to understand, we're not all naturally speakers. As a matter of fact, most humans are poor speakers, but we all know how we wish we could communicate, how we wish we could speak. And so we naturally gravitate to voices that dare to say the things that we don't. That's why it's so important for that. That's the reason why I say being genuine is so important, because all those things that we bring out to light, a lot of the time, those are things that people are now being shaken by and saying, wow, that that is a mouthpiece for what I feel, for what I believe in. That is how, as a speaker, there's two things that you want to work on. You're working instruments as a speaker. You're working resonance. You want to get your audience to resonate with you. So what's important? Your voice is an instrument that you have to tune, but you also have to tune your audience to resonate with your voice, with what you're saying. The way that you do that is through speaking on emotion. You want to get your audience to see that they're not looking at you on stage, they're looking at themselves. And then every word that you say after that will vibrate within them with purpose, with call to action, with mission, so that when you are wrapping up your speech and you want to send them somewhere, they'll remember you for the rest of their lives. So it's tuning them and then tuning your message.
So holding a mirror up to themselves so they can kind of see themselves in your message. So how do you do that if you are, you may be speaking about a subject that is, like in your case, it was finance.
Right.
Maybe these people are, executives for a firm in which they don't have like an investment, right? How do you attach something personal to them or a behavior for them to maybe do something better if it's about improving skill sets, to an audience for them to make a change that matters?
Yeah. So here's what I'll say to you. That's a really good question, right? Especially because you wouldn't expect something like finance to be an emotional subject or something that you can really do what I'm sharing right now to do. But truth be told, everything can be. And I have one simple hack for every speaker right now to use, whether it's on a stage or you have to understand, speaking applies also to relationships, friendships, to your boss, to your coworkers, whatever it may be. It's the most useful thing imaginable. It's a superpower for human beings. And so the way that you get people to always resonate emotionally or to attach whatever you're speaking about to something that is dear to them so that they can actually connect with you is very simple. You want pain. You want to almost hurt your listener a little bit. You want to be very, very, very visceral. And so, for example, when I would speak about finance, I would start by saying things that would make people very uncomfortable, very insecure in a lot of ways regarding their finances. And then I would use that pain point that I was once at myself to show them a solution. So, for example, I would always start off my speeches by one very simple thing. Who here has been detoured from their greatest dreams and happiness and passions in life because they had to make ends meet? Every hand goes up, right? Who here is still stuck working a job that honestly that they don't really like? Every hand goes up. And then I tell them, you're not at fault for where you are, but you're at fault if you stay there, especially after what I'm about to share with you guys. Simple as that. Connecting pain to their passion and being the solution in between.
So being the guide, instead of being the hero of the story, and what you're saying has more utility for helping a person kind of connect the points of what you're saying. There are many, quote, self-proclaimed heroes in the story of life, and you can just wait for a few minutes and those individuals will tell you that they're the hero of the story. But by being willing to show a person how to get to where they want to be, you turn into something else entirely. That's kind of what I get from your message.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to, I mean, if you're just talking about how good everything is for you, you're not really an effective speaker, because your goal as a speaker is to be a leader. You can't lead if you're just telling people where you're at. You have to lead by showing them how you got there, right? The whole journey and everything, and what change that they need to be making in their life to get there. Now, what I'll say to you is the reason why I say it's important to make them feel pain is because, frankly, if you're unhappy in your life, you shouldn't allow comfort to make you stay where you are. A lot of the time, that's what we do. And so for a lot of human beings, years and years and years and years go by before we realize, oh, crap, I've been unhappy all this time and I've done nothing about it. And I've stayed perfectly still. You need to break people out of their comfort zone first. So shocking them with something that is going to hurt them a little bit is huge. And it also does a psychological switch where now they're listening because they weren't expecting that. They were expecting, hi, my name is Sebastian, and here I'm going to talk about this or that. I don't even start my speeches off by introducing myself. I start off with a question. If not, I start off with a story. a story that they're going to resonate with, because I talk about how poor me and my family were and how hard we struggled early on and how terrible that is and how we could have stayed there. So I want to first and foremost hurt the audience a little bit to then show them the light. Be that guy that you're talking about. You're exactly right.
I remember I gave a presentation at fitness conference for executives in the fitness industry, and the conversation on the panel was about, and I've related this story before, the last time I had someone who specialized in public speaking on the podcast, was about being able to create a resonant message to the people who are listening and to get uniformity in messaging. And so I started off, when they asked me, because they were going down the panel, they tried to ask everyone what they thought was the best way to get a message out there. And my response was, the first thing I think about when it comes to getting a message out there is bacon. Like now imagine that, right? Like you're at a fitness conference and like with fitness executives, and a person just randomly says the best way to get a message out there is bacon. And you're like, what the hell are you talking about? Right? What does that have to do with anything? Right. And my point was not about bacon, of course, but it was about Edward Bernays, right? The father of social engineering and public relations, and how he manipulated a message into something that was ultimately palatable for thousands of people to increase the sale of pork and eggs across the U.S., right? This is way back in the 1950s, 60s. So I talked about what he did to achieve that. And it was just with the feedback I got from the people that were watching was watching the presentation was captivating, right? Because I think to your point, it was unexpected.
Yes.
They didn't know it was coming. It was like a pattern interrupt. Like
exactly.
I thought it was just going to be information. And then you tied it into something real that they can actually take away.
Right. That's there's a couple of exercises that I teach some of my speakers before I send them out on stages. And that's actually one of them. There's two things that you talked about right there. First of all is the pattern interrupt. That's huge. Your voice is actually an instrument that benefits from discord. If you've been speaking loudly for some time and you want to drive that last good point home, then you quiet it down. Right. And if you've been speaking very quick for some time and you're really like killing it left and right, and then you want to really just lock everything in, again, you slow it down. You want to really just switch around your tone, switch around your pacing every step of the way to make sure that you're really driving good points home and being unforgettable to the audience. Now, the other point that you mentioned that I really like, and that's very true, is something that I call the deliberate hot take. I tell all my speakers to do that. It's actually a thinking exercise as well. It helps you flow better in your speeches. You, if possible, say the craziest thing imaginable and then make it tie in somehow. You said bacon. That's really hard, dude. That's really hard to tie in. But you figure out a way to do it. That's a good one, man. But my speakers, I'll tell them, for example, I'll even start off a lot of my presentations about finance saying something like, finance is actually the least important thing. It shouldn't be what's on your mind at all. This is coming from a guy that's on stage, got invited and paid to speak about finance. He's telling everyone that they don't need to think about this stuff right now. Right. Again, that's a deliberate hot take. I'm intentionally saying something that is maybe counterproductive or crazy or irrelevant, and I'm making a tie-in. And then I'll say something like, your finances should be so good that you don't even have to think about them. The fact that you're so obsessed about it, it means that you're trapped, you're enslaved by money as opposed to having it work for you. And that's the biggest difference between the poor and the rich. The poor work for money, the rich have it working for them. Finances should be the last thing on your mind. And that's how I would tie that in, for example. But it's a very effective speaking tool. Whatever you're doing, whether you're on a stage or talking to family or your boss, if you can apply that in a way that's very smooth, man, you're going to be unforgettable.
One of the hallmarks of public speaking, of course, as you go throughout your speaking career is, the nerves kind of at the beginning, they can be overwhelming. And as you move on, the nerves become kind of unrelated necessarily to the crowd and more related to like, am I delivering what I promised I was going to deliver? Right. Kind of like, you're not, okay, there could be 10,000 people there. I'm not concerned about 10,000 people. I'm concerned like, man, am I actually going to deliver what I'm being paid to deliver? Mm-hmm. How do you help, or how do you suggest, in other words, that a public speaker focuses on delivering that result every single time?
Right. That's a really good question, man, because people don't realize it. 90% of people are more afraid of public speaking than dying, which is pretty crazy. You can look that up. That's a really crazy but very real statistic.
You know
And
the joke
so,
that Seinfeld said, though. Jerry Seinfeld said. He said that means that people would rather be in the casket as opposed to giving their own eulogy.
right,
So I
that's
think
it.
it's
You
funny.
know, that's very true. And but what does that really mean? It means that speaking is naturally something that's very, very difficult to us. And even myself, even experienced speakers, when you're coming up on a stage, especially a very important one, you feel everything attack you at the same time. You feel that imposter syndrome, you feel that insecurity, you feel the nerves, all those things attack you at the same time. But I think back to three things, three very simple things that always drive me forward and lock me back in. So this is how I deal with the nerves, right? Um, Whenever you're speaking, you need to believe your message first and foremost. You need to believe what you're talking about.
Right.
People can see right through you if you're talking about something you don't believe in. Simple
Yep.
as that. Next, you need to believe that your audience needs to hear this message.
Yep.
Again, people for some reason, especially beginner speakers, are under the impression that they're boring the audience and they try to speak very quick. They fly by some immense points of their story, and I tell them, slow down, man. They're here to listen to you.
Mhm.
Please expand on that, right? So believe that your audience needs to hear your message. That way you give it the right emphasis, the right attention and pacing that it deserves. And lastly, believe that you're the only one that can share that with them. Believe that you're the only person in this field. And that's so important because you have to love yourself to be a speaker. You have to see that you're special, that you have something worth listening to. So knowing that you are the only person with your exact voice, that kills your nerves so quick, man. It makes you feel like you belong on that stage.
Yeah, and obviously, if you've been invited to speak somewhere, they want to hear from you. They want your perspective. Now, depending on what you're speaking about, of course, if you're in a different arena, then but like still, people want to hear your point of view. And I think you're right. Accepting the fact that you've been invited to speak and people want to hear from you should make you feel more comfortable and less
Right.
nervous because for lack of not to make people more nervous, but the people are hanging on your every word because they're waiting for you to actually say something. And
Right.
but I think that and tell me what you think about this. I don't think that they're necessarily waiting for you to say something profound. They just want to hear something well thought out that
Mhm.
is something that you've been maybe working on, maybe you're an expert in the space. They just want to hear how you develop, strategy for whatever it is that you're doing or what your take is on like on the topic. And at that level, you become a thought leader. And when you're a thought leader, you can get paid for what you know, or
Exactly.
for how you think. And that transitions into, like as you mentioned, we started this conversation about you talking about how you gave a speech on finance, people liked you, then they gave you other opportunities,
Correct.
but it's because that they can see first, in my opinion, that you could think your way through problems.
Right.
And to me, that aspect of critical thinking today is missing in public speakers because people either just spot out at the mouth or they haven't taken the time to actually offline think about the quality, like a quality response to the subject matter that they're going to be speaking about. And so what comes out is an undeveloped, uninformed, you know, very simplified view of a topic or a subject. What's your
Right.
thoughts?
Well, I would say you're very spot on with what it means to be a thought leader, right? People aren't waiting for you to change their life when you speak. They're waiting for you to speak for them. They're waiting for you to embody those ideas or expectations that they have, right?
Mhm.
So if you can be a profound speaker at the same time, that's great. But what you have to realize is as a speaker, you're already a leader because you're on the stage for every 99% of people that don't go on a stage, you're the 1% that does, right?
Right.
So it's more a question of, again, focusing on what you're going to provide, focusing on what you're going to give to your audience and the impact that you want to have. And so I like to say this all the time. Every speaker is a leader, but not every leader is a speaker. That's very clear from what I just shared with the United Nations. I saw so many people that were
Right.
awful speakers, right? And that they weren't able to drive a single point home. They weren't even embodying the voice of what their audience was looking for them to embody. They were just reading off a script. They
Mhm.
were killing people just because They weren't able to garner enough attention to those subject matters. There's people that are talking about genocide, talking about slave trade, talking about human trafficking, and people are falling asleep in the audience.
Yeah.
And it's not because they weren't profound speakers. They were talking about very profound things. It's because they weren't powerful speakers, because they weren't personal speakers.
You know what I think about? I always wanted to be the person. I tell my kids, I have 2 kids, they're older. Only speak when you really have something to say, right?
Exactly.
Like, so when you actually have something that to say that's well thought out, that's when you should speak.
Mhm.
And when you do that, what I find is that people wait for you to develop your idea, right? So
Yes.
oftentimes what I find is, like if a person's always cutting you off when you speak, they're not necessarily interested in what you have to say. And that could be a personal thing, because they could just be the kind of person that,
Right.
likes to hear themselves talk, or they just kind of like, it's only about this. I only want to get this out there and that's it. But I feel like when you actually bring a level of knowledge to the table about what you speak, or at least, again, it's well thought out, people will be quiet. They will quiet down and wait for you to finish your full thought before they respond, even if they disagree with you. They know that what they're going to get is something that's well thought out, and then they're willing to respond to you.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. And I think what you're talking about highlights another very important truth of speaking, and it's there's actually negative space that's super important to use. And what that means is silence. That's all it means. So a lot of professional speakers, they talk about using negative space, which means generating more impact to what you have said with what you haven't said. So after driving home an important point, being quiet. In a podcast style conversation, I have a lot. It hasn't happened here because we've been flowing very well in this conversation, but there's times where they'll ask me a tough question. I'm not afraid of being quiet for the next 10 seconds while I think. And it actually, people are scared of that. People are scared of silence because they are under the impression that they need to fill every second. Silence literally pains them when they're inexperienced speakers. You have to realize, though, that it does so much service to you, giving silence. It allows your image to be perceived as someone that is actually thinking about what they're saying, that is wanting to give actual value. It gives your last words this reverb. It's making them echo in the minds of the listener.
Yeah.
I tell some of my experienced speakers still that are part of my agency, I tell them, listen, you just drove home an important point. Be quiet, shut up, and the second that it feels too long and too awkward, give it one more second after that, and then keep going. You have to let your most impactful words echo. You gotta let that happen, man. And silence and pondering what you're gonna say next it's so critical, man.
I'm glad that you said that, because that it really is. It shows your experience with speaking, which is about not filling the voids, the negative space, not filling the silence. And as you mentioned, which I think is a critical part, is you can even, to some degree, I mean, you don't have to do it all the time, but you can plan your pauses in your speech or in your talk, so that so that the people who are listening can actually tune in. Because sometimes if a person tunes out, that the cadence, your speaking cadence, becomes the same thing as background noise.
Exactly.
If you keep going without a break. Sometimes those pauses, those pregnant pauses that you're talking about, can become a way to refocus. It's a pattern. It's a pattern interrupt in a different way that can refocus people on speaking. How I view speaking to me is like singing. Obviously without the hyperbolic screaming, but like, to me, speaking is singing because it's cadence, it's pitch and tone, it's pause, it's modulation, right? There's, like you talked about, positive and negative space, like there's a cadence to it, right? And people who are master speakers have the ability to capture the conversation by increasing their pitch, bringing their pitch down, making people in the audience focus, maybe making a big noise to bring up someone back, silence if necessary, an extra long silence if necessary. It's so funny because if you actually have that space that you were talking about where you're pausing, and someone's like looking down, and you don't say anything for a while, they'll
They
kind of
go,
like
look up, right?
they
Like,
look
whoa,
up like,
what happened? Are we done? Yeah, yeah, it's just like that. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. So I want to challenge what you just said. I actually want to disagree with you. You
okay,
said speaking is like singing to you, and I understand the analogy with the tone and all these things. But given what you just said about
right,
switching things up, throwing in loud noises, the way that I view it is the opposite. Singing, or rather, speaking is the opposite of music. Where
mhm,
music benefits from being predictable, rhythmical, and easy to kind of get behind and follow along with.
mhm,
You're speaking. If you do that, you're gonna kill your impact, man.
mhm,
Because again, you like you just said, it's background noise at that point, right?
right,
So instead, by throwing in a lot of different tones, by being very unpredictable with the way that you're going to say things and deliver them,
mhm,
your message is going to get through way better because it's going to keep your audience guessing.
mhm,
I tell my speakers, I mean, let me ask you this question this way,
sure,
and let's make this a little interesting, right?
yeah,
Um, I know I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, but I mean, come on, you're the host, so you should be good with that.
go for it,
If you got on a stage right now and they handed you a mic, let's say
sure.
like literally right now, how would you start your presentation?
I would pause. I
That's
would
good.
start with silence.
Good, yeah. And then after that, would you introduce yourself? What's your first instinct after that?
I would say I'm not even sure what I'm here to talk about.
Well, that's a good one, right? Because I didn't give you a prompt. But that's something a lot of speakers do, for example. They'll
Mhm,
start off by introducing themselves,
mhm,
reiterating, or saying thanks to the audience and things like that. And here's what I tell my speakers in my agency. I tell them, the moment that you say something that the audience already knows, you're done, man. You're
yeah.
done. You cannot
Yeah, no,
say a
I
single thing.
completely agree with that one. I
Yeah.
always start with something to the left, like the I'm not even sure why I'm here is a line that will
Well,
get people
that'd
to
be a good one.
yeah,
That
because
would definitely throw people off.
yeah, they're just waiting to hear. Well, what are you going to talk about then if you're not sure why you're here? And then
Right,
then you can kind of bring them back.
right.
But yeah, I kind of like to your point. I kind of start with that,
Mhm.
something to that effect.
Yeah,
You
some
know,
silence or some
yeah,
kind of there's two really good ways to always start a speech or any kind of conversation, really, and it's either a story or a question. You want to
mhm,
engage your audience off the bat. Um, if you could do both, that's even better. So asking them a
mhm,
question and then following with a story, that's great. But you never want to start off by saying, "Hi, my name is Sebastian, and I'm here to teach about this or that."
right.
You're done. They've already tuned you out because they know what you're here for. So they're
Hmm.
waiting to tune back in later once you start talking about something that they don't know.
Yeah.
They're already unengaged, right? Same deal if you start by saying thanks, you're just reiterating things that they already know,
Yeah.
and you don't get them back. It's very hard to get them back after that. So from the get-go, you have to be very, very audacious and very mm, different in your
Yeah.
message.
No, I completely agree. I would say that my default is usually a story, and
Mhm.
then I will just jump into a part of the story um, that is not necessarily the beginning,
Right.
and like almost like a Quentin Tarantino film, right? Sometimes he starts at the middle and then goes backwards and then goes forwards. Um, sometimes I'll just jump in with the story. Sometimes I have in the past I've done a lot of presentations, and um, in the past I've told a story that had nothing to do with what we were talking about. And then I say, what does that story have to do with why you're here? And then I'll say, absolutely nothing. But here's the real reason why we're here. Right. Just like, it won't be too long and too arduous and too whatever.
Right.
Um, but it will be just long enough for them to kind of to kind of set the table to see how they're going to react. Is that guy over there going to respond? Is that lady over there going to pay attention? Is this guy on his phone? Like, what is going to get them to engage with what I'm saying?
Right.
And
Just throwing things out there, see what sticks. Right.
staring at people too. Like I don't like
Mhm.
stare at them like I'm staring through their soul, but I'll look at them to see how engaged they are. And sometimes if you just talk to one person for like 10 to 15 seconds, like that makes an impact too,
Huge impact, man. Huge impact. And also, dude, it scares the crap out of people because they feel like you're about to call on them a lot of the time. It's actually it's actually another good tip for speaking is you got to pace and you got to scan the room
Yeah.
because to them, again, you're not really, I do it all the time. I will scan the room, I'll look through people and whatnot, but I have so much adrenaline because I'm speaking and I still get nervous as a speaker. I don't show it, but
Right.
it's inevitable. I have no idea who I'm looking at, dude. Like it's blurry faces to me when I'm on there. And so to me, it's like I'm just scanning the room, but to them, Like, even if you're looking in the general direction of someone, it feels like you're staring right at them from their
Yeah.
perspective. So they're
Mhm.
like locked in. They're like, oh, is he about to call on me? Is he talking to me
Yeah.
directly? Does he know what I did yesterday? Like things
Right.
like that. You're really just driving your points home because now it's personal what you're saying.
Right.
And that's always a huge tool. And what you said before that as well about you want to start by saying a story that doesn't necessarily have to do with what you're talking about. Buying time as a speaker is sometimes very important. You can do that with silence, you can do that with storytelling, but your goal really at the end of the day is to plan out what you're saying as you're going. Having a script is the worst thing you can do as a speaker. I'm not saying you should wing it, but I'm
Mhm.
saying that you should have your points internalized, but very broad points that you can expand on and compress depending on the needs of your audience. You're
Right.
talking about you're kind of just throwing things out there, seeing what people resonate with. There's a
Mhm.
better way of doing that. And it's simply by having your list of points, going through them and seeing, oh, this has good engagement from the audience. Let me really expand on this. Let me talk about how it felt. Let me talk about how this point is. Let me talk about how to change it, what it means, all those different things, right? You really expand on what you see as hitting. Never let thunder just be thunder that strikes once. Like you really want to expand on what works.
Finding your voice when you're speaking, like what you're good at talking about and why people should engage with you is hard. People have a hard time trying to
Right.
figure out what it is that they do, right? For lack of a better word. How does one find their voice, their subject, their passion for speaking, like the thing that they could actually go and speak to, thousands of people about and get paid for it?
Okay, I love that question. I'm actually reading a book right now. And here's what I can you still see me? I just switched tabs so I can read it
Yeah,
to you.
I can see you.
Okay. So the book is titled You Are a Genius, but You Sound Like an Idiot. A Guide to Mastering Public Speaking and Yourself. Now, here's the deal with the book, and this is one of the main things I wrote towards the beginning.
Right.
To be clear, no, you don't have to be a genius to get value out of this book. Quite the opposite, in fact. It is in your journey to refine and better your speaking that you will find your genius. You don't need to be good at speaking at something, you just need to be good at speaking. Within your own articulation, within your own existing passions, you will already find that voice and that message for the world.
Mhm.
So everyone's got passions, everyone's got interest, everyone's got their pain, their journey, and I believe everyone's a genius in their life. You just
Interesting.
don't have the articulation to let it be seen.
Mhm.
So I would suggest anyone that's having a hard time finding about like what to speak in or what to be passionate about, learn to speak first. Talk about things that you like, and you will find that passion and that articulation in and of itself.
Right. So if if they have a if they have a you talked about a passion, like someone getting up and talking about knitting may find an audience, and in some cases on like YouTube they've been able to build big followings, um et cetera, et cetera. How does a person find something that is scalable, a message that is scalable to many
Mm,
people?
That's a good question. Well, the world has a lack of speakers as is. The world has a lack of leaders because we're terrified of it, frankly. Finding a message that is scalable, you're always going to have an audience for what you speak on because there's always going to be people that are going to resonate with you. We're all human beings. We all live very similar experiences. We just don't have someone to show us that this is common, right? So I've had some of my speakers. They're people that oftentimes have suffered a lot, have gone through a lot of pain, have gone through a very extensive story, and they'll speak on literally just their story and how they overcame it and how they grew from that. That's
Mhm.
beautiful, man. That's turning suffering, which would otherwise be a waste of blood,
Right.
sweat, and tears in their life, just a scar and that's it, into a story.
Mhm.
Now I do have another kind of speaker as well. That it's a lot easier to answer your question with this. Speakers that are entrepreneurs, very easy to scale their mission. Very easy because they're monetizing it, right? So every time that they're on stage and talking about it, they're always selling their business along with it.
Mhm.
So using your business and turning it not into just a product for sale, instead a mission, a conquest that you're preaching about, you're going to see your sales go through the roof, man. Every single day of the week, you're going to see that happen because now it's not just, hey, I'm selling this. No, this is, I'm changing this in the world. This is my product and this is how I'm going to do it. So having something behind your speeches, like even if it's just a book or a
Mhm.
product, That's the best way to scale your speaking.
Right. How would you encourage individuals who are watching this podcast to start with their speaking journey?
Well, I would say it comes down as easy as talking to even friends and family. Being a speaker applies to everything in your life. I would say be more deliberate as a speaker, be more clear, be more audacious. Like if you believe in something, if you want to get something out there, yes, the world is going to try to kick you into a box and punish you for speaking out loud, but do it anyway, right?
Mhm.
If you're looking to be a public speaker and to really continue down that road, I would say get your reps in, man. Get on some podcasts, get in front of a mic, record yourself speaking. If possible, find a coach or an agency that's going to take you to the next level, put you on stages, put you on podcasts, put you wherever you're going to be, and make sure that they give you good exercises to refine your speaking. I'm a intensive one-on-one speaking coach as well as an agency that I send people out to stages, but there is a free option for people that are just kind of looking to get some general advice. And you can go to somewhere like Toastmasters, where you can just go and practice your public speaking with other passionate or beginner speakers. Very easy stuff to get into. You just have to have the courage to start.
Yeah. And so Toastmasters, hiring a coach, what should be the game plan for these actions? Like, I mean, granted, in some cases, people may want to do these things just to get better at public speaking, but what should people be focusing on for like the outcomes of this?
Outcomes. Yes, that's a great question. So wanting to see tangible results when they're speaking, right? Well, I don't even work with people that are going to be public speakers if they're not taking it seriously. So I'll tell all my speakers in my meeting calls is, hey, if you're taking it seriously, I will literally drive hours to meet with you. I will, like, whatever it is, man. I'll drive out there. I'll give you the full rundown. I think to get tangible results from speaking, you have to take it seriously in the sense that you're not going to get very far alone. You need to do a lot of networking, meet a lot of people. It's almost a non-negotiable that you will need an agency at some point and a coach at some point. Getting from being a bottom 10% speaker to a 70% good speaker is pretty easy, but that's not going to get you on stages. Right. Getting from being a 70% speaker to a 100% speaker gets exponentially harder. And the only way to really refine is by having someone pinpoint your exact problems and give you exercises on which to improve those on. So to actually see tangible results, it's not hard. It's just not simple. It requires a lot of networking, a strong team, and you will need to really be audacious in getting out there. You gotta like network with everyone, force yourself into some stages. Having one good stage is all it takes to really build a career. That's what I focus on for my speakers.
So I've put right here, this is a QR code if you're watching this on Zoom, to Sebastian's website. You can scan this with your phone and connect to his website and kind of see what he talks about when it comes to speaking. If you're interested in getting coached by him and his speaking agency, you can do so. But more importantly, just get started with speaking. Take your opportunities where they exist. Try to find free resources where they exist, and take a look at his blog and the stuff that Sebastian preaches. So right here, go ahead and scan it with your phone if you're watching, and take a look at his website. Sebastian, I appreciate you coming on today. I appreciate the expertise. I appreciate that you have refined thoughts when it comes to public speaking, and you shared some really good, valuable insights with everyone who's watching as well. So thank you so much for taking the time to come
to be here. It's been an honor, man. I appreciate you so much. And to those listening, there is free coaching on the website as well. So I'm a big believer in giving people something tangible to work off of first. I want to change lives, and I want to make voices heard, right? So I appreciate you so much for giving me the chance to be here and really help drive that forward. Thank you so much. It's been an honor.
Absolutely. So from my perspective, speaking, like I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, there's three things that will make you absolutely deadly in business: writing, speaking, and thinking. If you can do those three things, you should be perfectly fine. But you have to start. You have to get trained. You have to dig into the work for each one of those things to kind of make you elite on each one of those levels. And by working with someone like Sebastian or looking at his resources, those things will help you as well. Another resource that I talk about often on this podcast is my Small Business Mastery newsletter that comes out every Tuesday. And what I like you to do is I want you to scan this QR code right here. It looks similar to Sebastian's, but this is a different one. And this QR code will bring you to sign up to my Small Business Mastery newsletter. It goes out every Tuesday, and it's going to give you and teach you the skills about operating your business. If you're an entrepreneur or a business owner, it's going to help you develop some of the skills that are necessary to get your business and bring it to the next level. So I appreciate you watching today. For Sebastian, I'm Micah, and we're out of here. Peace. Oh, wait, where's the outro? 1 second. There it is. Now, peace.